Today's Thursday, February 8th. This is the work session of the School Board of Trustees of the School City of East Chicago. The time is 6:08 p.m. The place is the Administration Building, 1401 East 144th Street, East Chicago, Indiana. We're also via live stream at www.scec.k12.in.us. This is a meeting of the school board in public for the purpose of conducting school corporation business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Let's go ahead and call to order. Trustee Gomez?
Present.
Trustee Gibson King?
Present.
Trustee Smith? And I, Trustee Rodriguez, is here as well. Let's stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, we do have an agenda in front of us, so we're going to start with the operations update, letter A, security. Dr. Mitchell.
Yes. Right now we have our security, they're taxed right now, not able to attend, so I'm going to go ahead and take care of the security presentation. We've been working really closely with security with Rick Chavarria. We've also been working with the city, the county, as well as state in terms of making sure that our buildings are safe and secure. We're going to go here. We've put in enhanced safety measures at all of our schools. The enhanced safety measures are some of the schools, they receive new vestibules that allow controlled entry in and out of the buildings, as well as updated camera systems. Those camera systems allow us to track movement throughout the building. We can put a track on someone and follow them wherever they go, as long as those cameras are activated. We've also, at our middle school and high school, we put in metal detectors. Those metal detectors are the full body scans, and they can scan pretty much a few thousand people per minute. And but we have them installed at Central, at the M door, as well as at the door, is that door A? The entry, the front entrance. And we will be installing them at the athletics entrance also. And so those enhanced security measures are really have paid off. Last year we did have two incidents where we prevented a weapon from coming into the school because those tools help identify that, and we were able to get it under control before the building was breached, and so that's a value add. Our security is undergoing extensive training. This past year, they've had trainers come in to not only train with CPI, but also in other areas of de-escalation and restorative practices. And so the whole idea of here is just to ensure that each of our security team, they have the basic level of training, but also if anything was to happen in the building, they'll be able to maintain control until we can get the local authorities into the building to take over that situation. We've also had, in the collaboration efforts, we've collaborated with the city, the East Chicago Police Department for SRO officer. We had an SRO officer until December. She she took another position, but right now we're looking at filling that position with the SRO officer. We have wrote a collaborative grant with the East Chicago Police Department, and so we're in the midway through with that particular grant. So we do have in that grant, we can hire a full-time SRO and 2 part-time SROs. Right now, we've been functioning with the part-time SROs, and those are officers who come in when they've been through the training, and they come in during their off time to do that. We're working with Chief Rivera to get another full-time SRO. It's just that they're kind of understaffed right now, and it's posing a little bit of a challenge. But we're working through it, and we're still making sure that our schools are protected. this is, I kind of spoke to this a little earlier, and the piece that I didn't speak to is point 3. We've just invested in new digital walkie-talkies, and these walkie-talkies have a range of, I think, is it 5 miles, George? They have a range of 5 miles, and so we know that our schools is within a 5-mile driving distance, whatever, so that means that even as these officers kind of leave our campuses, we'll still have really strong connection. And this also, because it has the 5-mile radius, that means we have a little bit more penetration in our buildings that are primarily constructed of steel and stone. And we know that with a cell phone, you don't get a signal, but with these walkie-talkies, even if someone is across town, they'll still be able to reach whoever they need to reach if they're embedded in one of our buildings. So we're really pleased that we were able to get that new walkie-talkie system in place so that we can, again, provide the additional securities that we need to ensure the safety of our faculty, staff, and students. We've had, the state has put on additional mandated training, and so we've attended the training that happened last year. There are some additional trainings that's going to happen this year. And I believe that President Rodriguez spoke to the House bill that's directly related to some more of the preparedness training that schools have to embark on. So if that legislation passes, there will be additional training that will be added to the current training that we have. We use a system called VectorSafe, and VectorSafe is a tool that has is a 3-prong. One is face-to-face, another is online, and then the third version of that is a hybrid, and that is the safety scenarios that our officers are able to go through that will help them be better prepared if such a scenario was to actually occur. One scenario that we...
Just want the record to reflect that Trustee Smith is also in attendance at this time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One scenario, well, one of those things that we all are really aware of is the active shooter drills. So we conduct those active shooter drills quite often, and actually we just had an active shooter drill at McKinley. I was in the building when it happened. It was about it was right after the holiday break we came back. And I tell you what, that Officer Howard and Officer Chavarria, they did an excellent job at ensuring that went off smoothly and made sure that everyone was informed and that the building was on complete lockdown, and the messaging that went across was very strong. Doing many of those scenarios, they actually practice as if there is not communication. And so they have to come up with alternative ways to get messaging through the building, because you never know if the power goes out, if the walkie's not working, if your cell phone's not working. They've come up with multiple ways of communication to ensure that everyone remains safe in a lockdown position until everything is deemed to be secure. So that's been awesome. The mandatory CPI training, we've not only done that with our security, but we also have all of our paras go through mandatory CPI. And that training, that goes into restraints and how to talk to people and all that stuff. And so that training has been, it's just awesome, especially as we work with some of our more difficult and challenging students that we have. We have runners, we have biters, we have that. And the CPI training really helps with that for children that may be on the spectrum or have some other issues. We never want to put anyone in harm's way. We never want to harm a child intentionally, so that's why we go through these trainings to ensure that we know how to properly restrain, that we know how to properly communicate and talk down someone. We know how to properly engage with parents. And all of that is just awesome training. And again, we've not only, it was first with our paras, but we extended it to our security, and it's been extended to the bus drivers this year, as we realized that, anybody that's engaged as a student needs this type of training. And of course, we require CPR for anyone that's in our building. All administrators have to have CPR training, first aid training, and a lot of this training, we do the refreshers ourselves with our Vector Safe Solutions. And there's roughly about 7 or 8 mandatory trainings that every single employee of the school city of East Chicago has to do every year. Usually that training comes out in November, and they have until March to complete it. So we're coming up to the final end. Right now, I checked my records a couple of days ago, and we were at 76% compliant. So we have a couple of more months to get to 100% compliant, and we're always try to hit that 100%. Oh, and of course, our collaboration is with, again, local, county, state representative. And again, we just spoke to the House and Senate measures to maintain compliance and uphold safety standards. There's a lot of policies, procedures, legislation that we're all bound by, and we always try to make sure that everyone knows what that legislation is so that we're always in compliance. That's one thing that I preach, but I know that that was preached before I even got here, and we just make sure that we reinforce it every opportunity that we get in our directors' meetings, in our principals' meetings, our assistant principals' meetings, our deans' meetings. And also, we want our directors to, and principals to also share that information with the meetings that they have at the building level. So that's what we have for security. Again, this was meant to be a high-level overview of just some of the main things that we have going on in security. And if we can get through a couple of these presentations, we'll take all questions at the end. Everyone is going to stay, and I think that we all work together, so we'll have to rely on one another to make sure that we answer your questions fully. So Ms. Oliveira will do transportation. I have to step out still.
Good evening, Ms. Oliver.
Hi. Right now, what we've been working with every year this goes on, we have our driver training, our drug and alcohol compliance, because we have so many drug, alcohol random tests, and every year the state police comes to make sure we are in compliance and that all the numbers of the drug tests are good and clear. I also make sure all our driver's licenses for the drivers are up to date and in compliance, physicals. We also have state certification for our yellow cards. We make sure that the drivers do that every year and keep on. We do all our online training that we need to do, and we also have training that we do personally with the school buses, bullying, and different types of videos showing the drivers all the situations and everything like that. And we do this every year right before school starts, make sure everybody knows what they need to know, and if they need any other trainings, we make sure, like the CPI, we did that one too. So but we do all the online videos and everything too. This coming March, we're going to have our bus inspections. That's a yearly thing for the whole fleet, and we have the semi-annual. When they have the whole year, they make sure they go through all the buses, make sure they're in compliance, they're safe to be on the road and everything. Our mechanics and stuff do a great job. They check everything. We always pass that with flying colors, and that's always done on a yearly basis. And this year, we're going to be getting 3 propane buses, and our first electric bus and charging station for the garage this time. I don't know how it's going to be the electric. We've never had one, but we will be getting our first electric bus and charging station put on into the garage. And we also have helped out, we've been collaborating with St. Stan's and Andrean High School, Top 20, and even the city doing field trips whenever they need field trips that no one could take. We always help out with any school district that needs our help and stuff. Really.
Hello, my name is Jose De Leon. A lot of people call me Joey, so if you know me by Joey. In food services, we have a 100% USDA-funded food programs that we run here at the school district, and that includes our national school lunch program, also the school breakfast program, and an after-school snack program. I provided some metrics there to show up until the end of November how many meals we've actually claimed with the state. So obviously how that works, the USDA and Congress, they allot money to the states and the states manage that money. We apply for the programs and become sponsors of those programs. And then every expense for food, for the payroll, for equipment is all managed through the 080 fund for school lunch, school breakfast, and other nutrition programs. This year, we were able to, because reimbursements were more than our expenses, we managed those expenses very, very well. We were able to get, I believe, 18 new UNOX ovens. These are combination ovens, and basically what we're able to do is perform various different activities using just one device. We can grill, we can fry, roast, we can brown meats in there, smoke them, steam them, make steamed rice. We can do a lot of things, and because it has convection technology, it cooks evenly. And not only that, it's a very intelligent device that knows how you cooked, for instance, pizza the last time. And so to cook pizza consistently every single time, as long as you told it that's the way we want it. So keep this configuration. And so it's a great piece of equipment that we have in there. They're in use quite a bit for a while in Europe, and now they're making their way into the United States in hotels and also in K-12 environments. We've also used the funds as well for refrigerators and freezers. There were some that were just not working, and so we went ahead and looked at the pre-approved list from the state of Indiana for things that we could buy to replace that equipment, and now that equipment is slated for correct disposal per the USDA rules for disposing of equipment, which is just reporting that we have that asset and report whatever depreciation we have left on there, and then probably go to auction. But we have done that in several schools to ensure that we can continue to freeze and cool food and keep it at the safe levels that we have to keep it at to maintain not just that it tastes good, but that there's no foodborne illnesses coming from mismanaged temperatures. Local food for schools. We are working with a group called Local Food for Schools. It's a USDA-funded supply chain help program, and hopefully it will increase our access to local foods for our district. It's basically Indiana-grown fruits and vegetables, beans and grains and milk and meats. And the program's going to be running until August 2024. I had a meeting yesterday with the group, and they said that it's probably going to be extended beyond August 2024 into probably the end of the year, which is good for us. So we'll just continue to order some of that. It offsets what the USDA would provide, but it's all really funded from the same source, USDA funded. The benefit of this is that we get to work with socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers who don't get the opportunity via the normal supply chain to get their products into grocery stores and other distributors. And so the food must come from these local sources, small sources, socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. We have some key food service dates. We are going to have a Super Bowl menu tomorrow. I believe there's some wings in that menu and also some other good eats for the Super Bowl. We also have something going on for Fat Tuesday. I heard something about a gumbo going into that menu. So hopefully we'll have something going on, chicken. And then we have the Southeastern Asian tandoori chicken options on February 15th. And for Black History Soul Food on the February 23rd and also February 29th. So that should be a lot of fun so we can explore. The tandoori chicken is part of a program called the Global Bites. And so we introduce different foods from different regions in the world and kind of just get the palate to be a little more sophisticated for all of our students so they can try different things. And that is it. Facilities is up.
In facilities, we know we have some challenges. One of our major challenges was the HVAC systems. We also have some deferred maintenance that hasn't been done in a couple of decades, as well as custodian performance and craftsman training. At our HVAC systems, we, over this winter, we know we had a pretty harsh few days where we had intermittent HVAC services in our buildings. We were able to get that under control in the month of December and the very beginning of, so when we came back in January, all of our buildings was heated properly. And we're working on that. We haven't had very many issues with that. Is now the issue is it's too hot, you know, so, but that's way better than it's 30 degrees in a building and it's 20 degrees outside. So, but these systems are older systems, and there's a history of operational failures. So we're on top of that, and with that, with the ESSER $3, we have procured, three new HVAC systems in 3 of our schools. And so they will receive those systems. Right now, the pre-bids are out. We will be opening up the final bids on February, I think it's February 21st, and then work will begin in March. We have an estimated completion of fall 2024. All these dollars have to be spent by December of 2024. So these systems have to be installed and operational by that time. We've brought on a project management company called HPM, and they've done a really great job with us with the vestibule projects that we've had. And we're really, we put this project back on a timeline for successful completion. We were out of timeline, started in June of 2023. The project had stalled until this past month, January, and we got the project back going. The drawings were at something like 80%, and the drawings were supposed to be completed by August. There was no communication. Things had pretty much just died. And of course, when that came to our attention, I really pushed that whole piece, and now we got it back on track. So we will be completed with this project. Most of it, the great percentage of it, will be done in the summer, with just a little bit having to take place in the fall. So it will be very minimal interruption in our instructional class time. Our deferred maintenance, again, many of our buildings haven't had very much maintenance. This particular building probably hasn't had significant maintenance in about 30 years. One of the issues that we have in many of our buildings in different places is the roofing and things like that. So what we're working on right now is developing a work plan to address the major issues and assign a timeline to each of those projects by building. That's the only way to really, what they say, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? We're going to put this timeline together, building by building, and get control over that. We're in a place right now where we have done an initial global assessment, so we know what the major issues are. Now we have to go in and start to begin to correct those issues. I've been taking time on the weekends, and pretty much all of my weekends have been in a district, going through the buildings, doing an assessment. So I have to put on my contract construction manager hat. But again, these things must be done. And that brings us to the next thing, where we have staff in the district, but many of them are lacking some training. And so we wrote into their CBAs the training that's necessary. But of course, like with everything, people been doing a craft for 15, 20 years, they become expert craftsmen. If you just learn that trade over a couple of months, it's going to take at least 4,000 to 10,000 hours for you to become an expert. So we don't expect anybody to become an expert, so we're still going to have some issues, but at least we'll be able to have some guys that are aware of what the issues are, and we'll be able to assess those and get them corrected quickly. Some of the major issues in this deferred maintenance that we see across the district are our roofs, our windows, and our doors. And as some of you all know that sit on the board, those bring on concerns for safety, security, and excessive costs due to fixes. Many of those costs due to fixes are costs for utilities. You have poor roofing, you have poor windows, poor doors, you're going to have poor insulation. You have poor insulation, that increases your utility costs. You increase your utility costs because of poor insulation. Your systems have to work harder. If your systems work harder, they're more likely to fail. And when they fail, it won't be a small fail, it'll be a big fail because your systems have been overworked and overtaxed. So we definitely want to make sure that we address our roofs, windows, and doors as quick as possible, and we've started to do that as the door project and window project at Block. The custodian and performance and craftsman training. We have a huge issue with our custodians with attendance and work ethic. You can see that when you walk into our buildings. You know, there's a hit or miss sometime in some buildings whether or not a custodian is even going to show up. And one of the questions that I know that a couple of you had on the board is, why is there so much overtime? Why do we have so many subs? We have that because some of the folk that's been in the district for a while, we just have come to a point where we have poor attendance. And of course, if you have poor attendance, that has other things associated with it. When you come to work, what do? Usually there's a poor work ethic that's there. So if someone doesn't take pride in what they do, then they're probably not going to do it well. And so we're working on that. We've been making sure that we're holding the custodians accountable, but like with everything, it takes time to make those corrections. And it's very difficult to make corrections when we don't have the type of I'm going to say leadership and management in the right place to make that happen. So, but we're working on that also. Our carpentry, plumbing, and electrical, as I said a little earlier, just lack an appropriate skill set. I'm not saying that they're bad people. They're great people. They know what they know. I'm just saying they don't know enough to manage a building, especially a school building with the average size of 50,000 square feet. And actually, the average size of our building, you at Central and Block, is more than 50,000 square feet. But again, those are large buildings. They're almost equivalent to commercial or industrial buildings, which means you have to have a different skill set. You can't bring a residential skill set into a commercial or industrial space and expect to perform. You're dealing with different voltage. You're dealing with different type of machinery. You're dealing with different equipment. You're dealing with different supplies. And therefore, you need someone with a different skill set to make that happen. And also, we've addressed in the CBAs training issues that we can take care of. And so we make sure that in the CBAs that OSHA training is mandatory, customer service training, mandatory, ethics training, mandatory. There's been some things that just you wouldn't tolerate it in your house, so why would you tolerate it in your schoolhouse? And so we want to make sure that we're doing that. And because we're dealing in a unionized environment, if it's not in the CBA, sometimes it doesn't happen. So we're making sure that we're putting those things into the CBA and then and being active on it so that we do have some teeth when it comes to it. Otherwise, if it's not in the CBA, people are going to grieve you. When they grieve you, it costs you. putting it into the CBA, you reduce the grievances, you reduce the costs, the action is more likely to happen. So that's why we've taken that path to really begin to correct those issues. We're going to have, are you, George? All right, so that brings us to the close of this. We're going to open it up for questions. And we're all here, so we're going to work with each other to help. Technology is here because everything in the district, in some way, technology touches. Yes, some way technology touches, right? So you can't have security without technology. You can't have your HVAC without tech. You can't have anything without technology. So I appreciate you for coming, George, and supporting us. And technology will also have a presentation before you. His presentation just will take a little longer because it's way more involved.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the audience at this time? In regards to security, transportation, or food service or facilities? Hearing none, any questions from the board?
Excuse me. I would just like to say that I see that we're moving forward. I see that we have a lot of deficiencies that have to be addressed. I'm really glad to know that I hope your electric buses work. That's the future. George, with technology, I thank you for all that you do. You make it happen. And technology. And food service, I really like the idea. Is that state mandated that we have to use the local farmers? I mean, the local, farmers.
No, it is not. It is not mandated, but it is an option that we wanted to do so that we do our part to contribute to those local farmers and get those foods out. Now, they get paid by the USDA.
Okay.
But we need to consume it before they can actually get a benefit from that. So it's our part as a district to contribute to that. It's organic foods, it's healthy foods, it's fresh to the table, so.
I appreciate that because that helps the community and it also helps the farmers in our area because they don't get the grants, that other big farmers get, and I appreciate that. Now that we're talking about food and lunches, I must throw this in. This is Black History Month, okay? And for those who don't realize and understand how the 100% food services got into public schools, are you familiar with that? I'm just going to give you a little history. Are you familiar with that?
Vaguely.
Okay. Well, let me just tell you this. It's happened years ago with the Black Panthers and Huey Newton and all of them in Chicago. Well, the thing was, and this is history, and then we're talking Black history, they weren't trying to be murderers and killers like everybody, the social media wants them to, think everybody like they were. But what they did was they were protecting their own community. As a matter of fact, I just, about 2 months ago, I had a funeral service for a Black Panther. And his story was, and all their stories were, we weren't there to hurt anybody, we were there to protect. But we also felt that our children in our area were not being fed, not because the parent couldn't have it, didn't have it. So they organized an organization to make sure that the children in their community were fed breakfast, lunch, and after school. So regardless of what social media says, that's how the food vouchers or whatever you want to call them came to, because once they realized they had to protect their own. And so people don't really know that, and that's a part of history. It was the Black Panthers. They were not criminals. They were just protecting their own community because nobody else would. So just a little bit of history on that. That's how the food services, the monies got allocated from the federal government to urban schools and inner city schools. So just wanted to let you know that. I know, good information, isn't it?
Any other questions from any other board members?
Yeah, I got a question. Miss-
Trustee Gibson King?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Howard was not, he was supposed to do the presentation, right?
Yeah, Mr. Howard, we're having some issues over at Central High School, and so he's there.
Okay, I know I heard you speak of the SRO.
School Resource Officer?
Okay, okay, and then, there was somebody else. Spoke of,
There's one full-time school resource officer we have that was written into a grant and 2 part-time SR officers. We're operating with the 2 part-time SR officers who give us partial coverage. The full-time SR officer took another position within the police department.
so that we did have an individual there at one time.
We had, I guess I can call her name. We had Officer Ashley Rodriguez.
Yes, so she's no longer there?
No.
So I want to ask now, now this grant is the grant that we write for these individuals, right?
It's a collaborative grant. We write it in conjunction with the East Chicago Police Department.
So they have a right to choose what officers go in, or,
It's their employee, yes. They choose the officer, they pay the officer, and that officer is assigned to us. And that officer takes, they assess our needs and then see how it works with the local law enforcement, and we try to come to a consensus on how they would operate. And the whole ideal of it is to create an environment that's safe, secure, but also an environment where the police are not looked at as a threat or anything like that, but looked at as a resource. And then the third part of that is by having an officer embedded, we can begin to decriminalize some of the offenses that would normally escalate to being criminal, because the officer is there to make a real-time assessment to say whether or not that's an offense that deserves for someone to be arrested or not. So with that, we did see a reduction in our suspensions and expulsions because of the presence of the SRO, and that SRO roved all of our buildings. So at any given time, she was at different buildings within the district and working closely with the principals.
okay, now, I don't hear anything about the truancy. What is going on with the truancy?
Yeah, we have 6 truancy officers led by Officer Maldonado. He's headquartered out of Harrison? Harrison. He's headquartered out of Harrison. And we have truancy officers in all of our schools. The truancy officers, they're paid by, I believe they paid by the court system. And that truancy program is run by Judge Sonia Morris. And, yeah, they're run by George Sonia
yeah?
Morris. And that truancy program is meant to really identify youth before they go too far, because we know if a child is truant for an extended period of time, usually there's some other issues that's there. And so what happens, and when the truancy officer gets involved, they will engage that youth, they engage the parent, and if there's a determination that this is something that needs to go to truancy court, they do make that assignment, and that parent has to go to that truancy court with the child, and working collaboratively with Judge Morris and some of the probation officials, they come out with a solution that will help to stabilize that child and the family. So that works very, very well, and it's part of a much larger truancy system that's ran by Judge not Judge Deidre Monroe, Judge, starts with an L. Can't think of her name, but she's actually housed out of the courthouse in Gary.
In Gary, right?
Yes.
So, but do they go to our courthouse, was in front of Sonia
They go
now? I
to,
know they go
they're in front of Sonia.
they go to-
Can't say Sonia, that's
Well,
so
Miss-
disrespectful. They're in front of Judge Morris.
Just, oh, okay, yeah, okay, that's interesting to know.
Plus-
And they still use the Gary courts too, right?
The Gary courts, they coordinate
Yeah.
all of the truancy
'cause that's
programs
what-
in Lake County.
That's where they were going first, to the Gary courts, right? I didn't know they went with Mrs. Morris now.
Plus,
Um,
plus when we
yeah.
went, oh, I'm sorry, are you finished?
No, I want to,
Go
no,
ahead.
I want to ask, Miss Susie. Yeah, your buses, all the buses have cameras, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they do. And just about a month ago, they've been going through them. We had a company come, making sure they're all working. We have some that are not, that will be getting repaired.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all that I
There's a
have.
follow-up to that. Is there audio?
Yes.
Thank you.
One more thing, Trustee Gibson.
Just a piece with the cameras. The cameras not only record inside of the bus, it also records outside of the bus. And also, in the current legislation, they have the bus arm legislation, because there's been a number of children that have been injured or killed due to people going around the bus arm. So they made that's on the legislative agenda this legislative session and at the Indiana State House. And we do have cameras that monitor our bus arms.
Oh, Trustee Gibson, downstate, they mentioned the truancy officers program, and they are trying to come to an agreement as to, because they realize there's a big problem, not only just in our area, but everywhere. So they were speaking about dumping more money into that particular program. Now, I don't know which house, was it in House bill, was it in Senate bill, or House?
I think it was in Senate bills.
Yeah, well, they did speak about the truancy programs and how much money that they want to put more money into that particular program. So
That's good.
let's pray that it passes.
And the judge for the truancy court that coordinates it for all of Lake County is Judge Inga Shannon.
And that's actually Senate Bill 282 that deals with school attendance.
Senate Bill what now?
282.
Okay, thank you.
So maybe we need to write, well, it's almost over now, but we can still, put our input in. And it was Senate Bill.
282. Any other questions from board members?
I do have a few questions.
Trustee Gomez.
Regarding the facilities, you mentioned
Oh, this- okay,
yesterday
thank
about our swimming pool not being functional. What's the condition of the swimming pool?
The swimming pool at Block still is lacking motors, and there's a ventilation issue that's there in the mechanical room, so that pool is down. The pool at Central we had to repair the roof. That roof has been repaired, so that pool should be back operational. They just had to do some cleaning and everything with that, but yeah, the roof and the gutters and soffits had to be replaced. So I believe that's all been resolved now.
Gary Gosh?
Kerry Gosh's pool, that part of the building, well, Kerry Gosh's pool is not operational at this time. It's been drained and covered. We're hoping to add more programming to Kerry Gosh so we can get the amenities that we have functional. So yes, Kerry Gosh pool is drained and covered, so it's in proper storage, I guess, yeah.
So
Can't think of the name of it, right? How you shut down the pool?
yeah, so you said that, excuse me, Block Pool and Central's Pool is what, being fixed?
No,
They're
no,
not
no,
fun-
no,
They're
no,
not
no,
functioning either, are
No,
they?
no, no. Central's pool should be back operational. We had to repair the roof,
Right,
the soffits, and the gutters because it was leaking. There was a severe leak. And actually, that was for a while. I remember going to the fitness center years ago, and all of the sheathing that was on the roof was already off. You can look at it, and you just saw it dangling, saw the gutters dangling. We got all that repaired. And I believe that we took a walk
Yeah, I
to
was
look
up
at
there.
all of that. Yeah, so that's all
Yeah.
been repaired now. So, and so that pool should be up and operational. They just have to clean it and do some things to get it back ready. The pool at Block, last year, there was maybe $20,000-$30,000 spent, but no one had done the full assessment of that pool. And it wasn't necessarily, they didn't correct everything that was wrong with the pool. And so that pool is still down. New pumps were ordered, but it wasn't the pumps, it was there was some issues in the mechanical room due to exhaust. It wasn't being exhausted properly. People were going in, they were fixing the pool, but they were fixing it, and when they fixed it, they fixed the old pool with new parts and new things, and it caused some other issues. Again, so what we did at that point, I believe that one of the pool instructors came to the mic and brought those concerns. When she brought those concerns, we engaged a pool company to come out to actually do an assessment to tell us everything that's wrong to put that pool back in operation. So we will have that. Right now, we didn't budget for it this year. So when we start to do our budgeting for the 2024-25 year, we'll see if we'll be able to absorb that cost for that particular pool.
Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, wasn't this, the teacher came up here in August, right, and spoke about that pool, that block?
Yes.
Yeah, that was in August. Okay, so nothing has happened since that point.
We just made sure that no one's going, even in August, children and people, they were going into the pool, and that's just not safe. You know, if the pool has, if the mechanical shop in the pool have an exhaust issue, it is not pumping properly, which means the chemicals in the pool are not circulating properly, it's not empty, that's not a safe environment. So I was like, you know, let's, so that now that swim instructor is teaching PE in the class and doing other things with those students, because it just wasn't safe for those students to be in a pool until we addressed the core issue of that pool, which was the mechanical room and the exhaust.
I had other questions regarding facilities, tennis courts.
I can't speak to the tennis courts at this time. I do know we have a tennis team, and Mr. Lane did field a tennis team this year, and I know he's still working with the students that use those tennis courts. In terms of the condition of the courts, I imagine that all of our courts probably need to be resurfaced, but at this time, you know, this is the winter time, so we'll be doing that assessment as the weather breaks, and we can really do the proper assessment to see what needs to happen to ensure that that's a safe playing surface. It was a safe playing surface last year because we did field a tennis team.
Yeah, I don't think those courts are in playable condition. The area that I find when we did our superintendent search years ago, the first comment that one of the candidates who became our superintendent made comment was, as he drove around looked at all of our buildings, they were in good condition. I don't know that anybody would say they're in good condition today. You look at Central High School, and I think it's deplorable, the entryway to that building. It's a sad state of affairs. Why is it like that? And why is there nothing being done?
You know, sir, it's like that because I think we went over some of the things. If you have a staff either that's not prepared, or you have community that just become apathetic, you have, there's a plethora of reasons why that's the case. But I can assure you that we've been working on it. The first day that I came into this district as director of HR in this last year, not the first time, the first thing I did was address some of the issues dealing with the entryways, and that wasn't even job of HR, to Lincoln Elementary School. We addressed the cleanliness of Lincoln Elementary School at that time. The district just has had poor leadership, and the leadership that was here may have been just too intermittent for anyone to really do anything. Again, everything rises and falls with leadership, and if you have a number of leaders, you're going to have a number of ideas, a number of folk who have different priorities. And so it's very difficult to really put a plan together, because every time a new person comes, there's a new plan. And that becomes frustrating to people, that becomes demoralizing to people, that disrupts the morale of the people, that also creates issues in the community where you have a lack of trust. There's so many issues that happen when you have just bad leadership, and or poor leadership, or lacking leadership, or changing leadership. I think that the greatest thing that can happen to not only our teaching and learning, but our buildings, our infrastructure, our human capital, is making sure that we have sustained quality leadership at the highest level that has a vision and has the wherewithal to put things in place from a systematic perspective. So whether that person is there or not, that there's a routine and there's a expectation of excellence and accountability so that things can move forward. Again, I've been in this game for 30 years. And in 30 years, I've seen a lot of different leaderships. I train leaders around this country. And I can say that, just from my opinion, it's only my opinion, that the change and fluctuations in leadership is probably the biggest problem that this district has. And now you'll find that those same issues in leadership that caused these issues in our infrastructure, in our facilities, and our teaching and learning will also begin to affect our finances. And it's going to affect your bond rating, it's going to affect all those things, because all of those factors go into leadership. Now, that's the economic guy in me that's talking. So, again, we just got to get it together.
On that economic note, I have two questions. One is the ESSER funds, they are coming up to depletion. Do you know how much of the ESSER funds we've utilized?
ESSER 1, ESSER 1 is pretty much the sunsetting. ESSER 2, we have probably about, I don't know the exact numbers, so I don't want to give you numbers, I'm just going to give you the percentage. We have about 17% left in ESSER 2. And ESSER 3, those dollars will have a better number of encumbrances with that once we bring on the contractors that's going to do this $25 to $27 million HVAC project. And so we'll have an accurate number there. But I will tell you this, is that we had to get some documentation in about that. So we can probably give you real numbers in 2 weeks. And actually, the auditors are here also, so those numbers are going to be really good if you wait to the end of the month. But we can give you good numbers in 2 weeks. We can give you better numbers when the auditors give us their final report.
Some of the complaints that I've heard. Some of the complaints I've heard as well are related to, you mentioned the overtime issues. And so I think some of the issues have been, you also mentioned the collective bargaining agreement, that people are seemingly operating outside of the CBA. And I can't remember exactly how it goes, but I believe number ones are supposed to work X amount of hours, and then they're going back to their original building and picking up their, I don't know how familiar you are with that, but that seems to be, that was one of the reasons I asked for the overtime numbers.
Right. And, yeah, the way that the CBA is written, is written, and it's really heavy seniority. I believe that many of you have been part of unions or are very well-versed in the union CBA language. Most things are governed by CBA, so it's not necessarily about a number of hours. It's about how long someone has been in a system, how this current CBA, the current CBA that this district operates up under is really written. So you have number ones. Number one is just saying that's the person that's on the day shift. The number two is the lead person on the night shift. And then you have a couple of other custodians that works up under the number one and number two on a day shift. Then you have subs that come in to fill in for those, the subs that are not number one or number two, to fill the voice that's there. When there is an absence of a number one, the way that the CBA is written is there's a piece in there called next in line. The next person in line to fill that number one position will be the number two. Whoever's in the highest seniority position in that building will step into the number two spot for that time, and then it goes like that. And once that building has been exhausted, and there's usually only 4 people in the building, then the master seniority list takes over, and then whoever has the greatest seniority in the district will come and fill that position. But as long as there's someone in the building, in that particular building, they would have first right of refusal to do that work. So you end up with number ones and number twos getting more hours than anyone else just because they have the greater seniority in the building.
I skipped over a couple questions since we went to finances. One of the other more deplorable areas is actually the hallway right here. I just walked out of the men's room, and I think there's 10 buckets in that hallway.
Okay. And with this building, we had Corellas out. We just did an assessment. What happened with this building is that when, I guess, they've been doing fixes and patches on the roof, I went up there myself, and they've been patching it with a membrane. Membrane is probably something like Elastosil. Yeah, I'm quite sure you're familiar with that. It's a kind of a rubberized system that you kind of mop on. You can only do that for so long. That's only meant for a temporary fix. Years ago, they put it in more so as a permanent fix, and that's not what is meant for. We did bores in the ceiling, in the roof, and turned out that the the membrane, then you have a piece of insulation that's there, then you have the steel that actually the roof sits on. The piece of insulation that's in the middle has been compressed about 60%. So that means that elastic that sits on there has been compressed. So now when there's a leak, there's nowhere for the water to go to be absorbed. And what's happened, that insulation has become saturated. And so in the wintertime, it freezes. And when it freezes, we know what happens when it freezes. Things expand. You expand. You create other voids and compromises. And so this roof has been compromised to the extent that you have all these buckets that you see. The only way to fix this is to replace the roof. You can't go back. You can go with another fix, but as we know, water is going to travel to the path of least resistance. And once it finds that path of least resistance, it's going to come in, then it's going to travel to another path of least resistance. So the leak that may be here could be on that other side of the building. One thing that we've been blessed with and very fortunate, I know that you know construction, is that our leaks have been contained to the centermost part of our buildings and not on the walls. If the leaks were on the external walls, then we can risk compromising the wall, collapsing and caving in. But that's not the case. So it's still a very repairable issue. It's just we have to put the resources in place. I'll be working with Leela, and we're going to work with some of the guys that we know that's really well-versed in roofs. It may be an issue where this could be an insurance issue, because it could be a fire hazard, a health hazard. Our insurance may be able to cover it. Right now, we haven't budgeted for it, but it's something that we may be able to absorb within insurance. But if we're going to stay here, we do have to correct it because, again, it causes other issues. You have issues of mold. You have issues of standing water, which could mean to disease. You have issues that mold in that water, and that when it takes into the air because of the temperature fluctuation in the building, once it gets humid, now you have something that's airborne that can create respiratory problems. So we have some serious issues, and we're working to address them.
I have
me-
one more question on facilities, then I want to move into food. The status of the facilities director, you mentioned poor leadership, lack of leadership, and other comments you made about leadership. What's the status of the facilities director?
We've interviewed, we had a pool of about 87 folk that interviewed for that facilities director position. We completed those interviews in November. However, we can't fill the position until the current position is vacated. When that position is vacated, we'll put a candidate up for that particular position. Until that time, the position, I believe, it may be still posted. We can still post it again because we haven't moved on it, just to get a refresher. But at this time, until that position is totally vacated, we're not putting forth another candidate because, again, that could lead to some other issues from an employment perspective.
I want to ask Mr. De Leon a couple of questions. Mr. De Leon, do you do surveys with your food service?
Yes, those surveys are managed through the food service management company. And so what we do is we have questionnaires that go to students. I don't know if it's via the principals or what have you. That we also have the online kind of a QR code that they can scan to provide feedback on certain foods that they have in cafeterias for that. We also have the committee, which is made up of stakeholders, a leader in a school, the student body president, myself and others that meet twice a year to kind of gather ideas as to how else to gather feedback. Right now, The way that they receive that feedback, it is electronic. They scan QR codes for things, and then they provide their questions, recommendations, or what have you about the service.
What's the response rate?
The response rate, I have not measured. I do not like that method because I like the old style, which is send something home and have someone call a number to provide that, or have comment cards that we can actually see. And so the issue that we have is that that QR code can be shared with anyone, and then we might get false information from that. So that is something that I have been seeing. We do get responses, but not as much, not 3,100 responses from all students. What I do is I walk the schools, I walk the cafeterias. I actually sit down during service, and I'll ask, how do you like the pizza? How's the bread? How's this? How's that? Hey, you brought your lunch in from home. Don't you like the pizza? So I get that feedback just organically from the schools, and then I bring that concern back to the food service company to let them know, what, I got a number of students who say that the pizza that has pepperoni, I don't know what it is, if it's a UNOX oven, if it's just we have to change providers or what have you, but they're not liking it. So I have that, the organic way. The QR code works as well. I just have my apprehensions about it. I probably want to go a different direction to collect more information from the students.
And the menus are already scheduled, like students would know on Friday what's coming Monday?
Yeah, that's correct. So we have what's called a 4-week cycle.
Okay.
And so on those 4-week cycles, we plan the breakfast and the lunch, snacks not necessarily. And so there is a tool that is on the website called NutriSlice. And on that tool, you can see successive days. You can see the entire month, up to 4 weeks of food, so that they know exactly what's coming. Through that app, they can also see where you have a V, if it's a vegan option, vegetarian option, whether there's an egg allergen or other allergens in there. So we have those indicators as well on the menu, so the students can be well informed as to what's being served.
Just one more question for you, and then I want to ask Ms. Olivares some question. What do you do with the leftover food?
So we have what's called the what is it called? Some leftover food is packaged. If it's really, really good, we'll package it and go out to different shelters to provide food at shelters. And so, but for the most part, this is USDA dollars, and so for some things we cannot do that. So if it's refuse meat that hasn't been cooked, unfortunately, we have to dispose of that, and then we have a disposal report that goes into it. The USDA knows about the disposal report, and then they kind of just figure what percentage of, because there's always going to be some loss. Restaurants have it, hotels have it all the time, and so they just need to report that percentage of all foods bought and how much of that was actually lost due to whatever the case might be, due to we're cutting the fat away, so so many pounds of this beef actually went into the garbage because we don't eat that part of the beef, or what have you. But we do package up some things. We make sure that the people that take the food are still eligible under USDA. So as much as possible, when we do go to these places, we try to find kids. So that's what we do, but it's not always. Where we know for sure that there aren't children, because this is a program for children, we don't go. But if there are children, we package it up as a snack, and then we do not take reimbursement benefit from that because it doesn't fit the actual cycle for reimbursement as an approved meal for reimbursement. So.
I think Trustee Smith had you want to ask your question first?
Well, yeah. So you say when there's leftover food, you do what with it?
Yeah, at times we need to throw it out. I mean, that's some of the the USDA rule there is that we discard of it, and so there's a discard percentage that we're already assuming is going to happen. And, it happens everywhere, right? You go to hotels, you got big boxes of oranges, discard it. What we do is if it's in good condition, we know what the shelf life is of like produce, apples and oranges. If it goes beyond ripe, then obviously the only place for it is going to be in the garbage. For cooked foods, there are some things that can be salvaged for the next day. We have to follow the HACCP rules. We have to follow the food safety rules as well to see if, if this sauce can be used a second time. We have reheat rules as well. Can go beyond this particular temperature or live within that temperature for 4 hours. So we have to follow all these rules. And if it doesn't go beyond those rules, then the food is deemed unsafe and we have to discard of it.
So hypothetically, I know what you're saying because restaurants have to do that also.
Yeah.
But is it possible that some of that food can be given to some of those children that are homeless that actually in our district? I mean, like sandwiches, like on the weekend. I mean, I don't know what you serve, but I'm just saying I know some foods can be left over or eaten the next day because we do it as adults.
Sure.
As opposed to just throwing it away. I mean, like snacks, chips or whatever. Is there a law that said we couldn't give those to those children that are hungry and that's in our school systems? Because sometimes those kids on the weekend, they don't have any food. And if there's foods, there's what, non-perishable or what? I know that, some of them might not even have stoves or refrigerators, but is it possible that something can be done with that? Or is that against the law?
Well, there are very strict laws as to how we can use the items that we buy with USDA dollars. And so for what you're speaking of, there is another program that we're in the middle of applying for, which is the CACFP program, which supplies suppers. And it's basically to severe needs. And so when we get that program up and running, it'll replace the snack program that we have right now and provide meals. And so we can still use the same inventory, so to speak, to accommodate that because it's all USDA program. But we have to be really careful as to what we do with items that we buy with federal dollars and divert those to other areas that are not an allowed action and allowed cost and allowed distribution of those resources. So the only recourse that we have sometimes is that we have to discard of that, and then, of course, we report that discard in the report. Yeah, and so it's unfortunate. If we were a different type of district that had, paid students and free students and that whole thing, and we were not a CEP district, and, free students was only 40%, and the rest of it we're bringing in revenues from parents that are actually paying for these meals, we would have some more flexibility because we wouldn't have the stringent rules that come with running those USDA programs. Yeah, they fund 100% of that, including my salary. So, everything comes out of the USDA dollars. Yeah.
Two things you just mentioned. So Alior, now that you're K-12 by Alior, if you're, are they in the school districts that you just described where there are, less than 100%, or I think you mentioned 40%? Are they in other school districts like that?
Yeah, so Elior North America has 3 separate companies that are dedicated to K-12, and one of those is Elior, K-12 by Elior. What I understand from the general manager that's here providing services is that they're trying to get the second school in the state of Indiana to go with K-12 by Elior. They are present in Illinois, which is a complete different set of rules. They still have to abide by USDA, but they also have some other provisions. But they're looking for their second sort of opportunity in Indiana. So we're the first to go with K-12 by Elior. And so I have not asked about that metric, but I can ask to see what other districts serviced by K-12 by Elior, what do they do if they are not CEP, not community eligibility eligible, to be 100% free? And because of that, do they have more flexibility to do something with the leftover food? Because I can see a need. We have the same thing happening in Gary, Indiana as well. And fortunately for us, it was COVID throughout the entire span of time. So anyone below 18 years old was eligible for a meal. And we just sent everybody with meals. Now we're past that, and we're back to the waivers don't apply. So we're back to, we got to follow the National School Lunch Program rules and the breakfast rules for those monies. Every single dime has to be accounted for. They're here now auditing every single cent right now.
You made a comment earlier about the food, and then it started making me think about longevity of the food, and, you know, you showed a picture of the stove, but what about the refrigerators, freezers, generators? Who funds all that?
All of that is funded through USDA funds. So what we do is we make sure that costs are below reimbursements, so that when it does come through, it looks like a profit, but it's really not a profit. All those excess dollars are used to improve the food service, buying refrigerators, buying generators, buying condensers, buying the piping that goes from a refrigerator to something inside of the boiler room. So all of that is funded with USDA dollars. And to date, we have not had to ask to the CFO for the general fund to actually help with the food costs yet. So we're doing well. The account, I'm always looking at it, making sure that we're actually covering our costs. Right now, we're looking at doing some refrigeration, walk-in refrigeration projects at Block. And sometimes these projects come at the expense of other projects, like getting brand-new cafeteria furniture, what have you. But it's just a matter of managing those federal dollars accordingly, and then coming up with a good budget year to year, and kind of just projecting what it might be. One of the things that we did not expect is lower participation when we actually started to serve in the cafeteria. One might think, now that I'm sitting down and participating, that I want to eat more or participate more. It wasn't the case. It actually dipped a bit. And if it dips, it means we get less reimbursement. So we're kind of just breaking even now. But as that continues to get traction, more students are actually, we're on an upswing now as far as participation. They must eat in order for us to actually tick it off as an approved meal. And so more students are participating now that we've made that transition. I expected that. We weathered it because we had some excess, but we were able to cover that. And so now with the trend going up again and students actually liking the fact that they can sit down and eat, there's more participation.
Your salary is USDA, you mentioned. What about staff?
So yes, all of that. So basically what happens is that the staff is employed by K-12 by Elior. We receive an invoice monthly, and it shows food costs, and it shows payroll costs, FICA, retirement. Everything is on that bill, including a management and administrative fee.
The other question I have is for Dr. Mitchell.
Before you do that, 1 second. I do have a couple questions for you since you're up there.
Thank you.
You mentioned 18 UNOX ovens.
Yes.
Are they dispersed? How are they dispersed? Are they in one building, or are they in all buildings? How does that work?
So we put 4 each in Block and Central. There are major production kitchens. And then we put 2 each in each one of the elementary schools. I need to check with Gosh, because I thought that I had one in Gosh, so, which means that we would be at the 20. That's why I said I think it's 18, but I think we put the 2 in Gosh as well. Yeah.
The second question, I know prior, we had students come in stating that, they couldn't taste the food or anything like that, whether it's pizza, whatever it was. And I don't, like us, as adults, we go to a restaurant, we'll put salt and pepper just to give it some sort of flavor. So can you explain a little bit on that in terms of why the food tastes the way they do?
Yeah, so we use what's called, it's not synthetic, but it's like a dash that does add flavor to the foods. It is so low, the amount of sodium that we're allowed to have inside of the foods. Now, it's the average over a week. And so there are some food directors, and we share this information all the time, that, sometimes on Tuesday, to make it tastier, we can, but we'll just do less on a Thursday, so that the weekly average is within that particular range of sodium that you can put on their plates. And so we have tested another provider of pizzas. I'm getting good feedback. I asked them, how's the pizza? I mean, specifically, how is the pizza? And a lot of students are saying it's yummy. I mean, I get yummy from the first graders. I get okay from the middle schoolers, and the high schoolers like, it's good. And so, I'm getting the feedback, like I said, organically as I walk through and ask about it. I haven't heard that again from some. There are some that, I don't eat pizza, so don't ask me. So I'll ask, why is it on your plate? Well, I have to just get something so I can be with my friends, right? So, but the taste, I have tasted it as well. It's good. The pizza is good. What we had to do is fine tune the Unox ovens to get to that smart setting so that it gets produced exactly the same every single time. And one of the good things about the Unox ovens, and I don't know if the technology is already in place for that, is that if it's good on one, it can be downloaded to all 18 without having to go to those ovens and actually programming it for what worked at the high school or what worked at Block, which is saves quite a bit of time. And then we'll have even cooking and consistent quality throughout for that particular food. They're still learning the Unox ovens. Sometimes I'll see and I'll say, well, a little bit crispier than we want. So let's try it the next time. The next time it'll be perfect. So, okay, that time, let's get that configuration, see if we can mimic that every single time. But it is testing much better. The bland part of it, we corrected it with the Dash products that we have that add flavoring to the food without having to add additional sodium.
So one student asked me, or stated to me that when they went to Lake Ridge School District, their pizzas tasted phenomenal as far as taste-wise. But for some reason here, it tastes, it just doesn't have a taste to
Yeah,
it at all.
it's not on par, yeah.
It's not on par.
I would need to see what Lake Ridge is doing. It's probably a good field trip, because I want to beat them. So
I think
if
they're-
they are saying.
They're not at 100%. They're
Yeah, so-
probably at 60% free and reduced, I believe. They're
So,
free, so they're not
Yeah,
at 100.
Yeah, so it could be that they're actually making sure that they can get a better product, that they don't have that restriction. So it's something that I would need to research to see exactly who they're using for pizzas. And then if we can get that product here and stay within the limits that we have with the food patterns and also with the budget, and make sure that we can actually get a reimbursement that's higher than the cost, then it's probably a good solution for the experience that they're looking for.
Thank you.
I had one question.
You're welcome.
The pre-K, are they fixing their food? How do they get their food? The K?
Yeah, they get the food just like all the other schools.
So nobody prepares theirs, they don't have people's cooking their food?
Yes, we have people in the kitchen there at Gosh.
Right, but now you don't have anybody in the kitchens at the other schools, do you?
Oh, yeah, every kitchen has kitchen staff, and we're preparing at every single kitchen.
So they so they use kitchens to prepare foods?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I was under them, okay.
The only other questions I had were for Dr. Mitchell. Going to the safety and security overview, all this stuff is nice to read and hear. But as you mentioned, technology can be taken down pretty quickly or defeated pretty quickly, such as somebody opening up the back door. So that drives the question of where, I know some prior complaints were that people were able to let other individuals into the building through other doorways, and so the fix was to chain the door, which obviously is a safety hazard. What's the status of the doors at Central High School in particular?
All right, that's illegal to chain the door during a time where children are in the building. However, we did have this fire inspector come. I believe you're talking about the M door. That door is off the jam, and that particular door, the fire chief gave us a pass until we can get that door fixed. He said as long as there was adjacent doors that were operational, we can use that. So I think that's door M, if I'm not mistaken, that's been secured so that it can't be forced open.
Is there a sign on the door?
There should be a sign on the
Okay,
door. I don't
good.
know if there's one on the door now, but I
Yeah,
know that
because
there
if
was
the
a sign
exit
on the
sign's
door
on and somebody,
when the fire chief went through, and we had the fire inspections in October or November, something like that.
Okay.
And the fire inspector did clears and give us the thumbs up that we can secure that door, but those other doors had to be operational. So the doors that's adjacent to that are operational.
at times I've seen, vehicles at what appeared to be parked along the Barado side of the building on weekends, more specifically on Sundays. Why are people there on the weekends?
I don't know why people are there on the weekends. They may be using that for a walking. I have no idea.
No,
But,
I've seen people
what
inside the
we-
building.
But what we can do, if that's the case, we can definitely put signage up. But I don't even know if that. I guess that would be trespassing. But do we want if the community is using that to walk or for exercise or just parking right there because nobody's in the parking lot that can fit 3,000 cars out? I'm not sure exactly what the fix with that is, but I think that's something that we can address as superintendent and the board to determine what it is how do we want to engage our community? Do we want to have them have access to spaces that are underutilized, or do we want to ban them from spaces? I don't know why they're parking in the Barado parking lot.
Related to that is, which then makes me begin to wonder, who has access to those doors? And the reason I ask the question is that we've had some former employees or people working security perhaps who left the district, no longer work here, yet they may have access to the doors. So my question is there any accountability for the keys?
The key system, the system that we have in our buildings, one, many of the doors you have to swipe in with your badge. And anytime someone leaves the district, their badge is deactivated. When we have other issues with personnel, employees in the district, we deactivate badges. In terms of the keys that's in the district, again, if these doors haven't been rekeyed over 30 years, I say Central's been up since I think my sister graduated in
87.
87. If those are the same locks that's been there for 19, I don't know who has those keys. But I can tell you that with the ID system, we do have controls over the doors with people that use the ID system. I would imagine that you say who has access, security, you have the maintenance guys, some teachers have access, the administrators have access. So that's why we're really diligent with other security measures that we put in place, such as cameras. We do have security in the building. We do have roving. The police department, East Chicago Police Department, do rove our campuses. I know that they've come on the weekend when I'm doing my walks through the buildings. They've come to find out, oh, yeah, that's Mitchell. But they stay and they call and they do everything that they need to do to ensure that we don't have any vandals or people that's trying to do a forced entry or unauthorized entry to our buildings. So we do what we can. I believe that we can definitely do more, but in order to get that key piece under control, we're probably going to have to rekey everything, and I think that would be a multi-million-dollar effort, just to rekey doors. And so again, we've taken, along with technology and various things like that, we've put in some alternative methods of securing access to our building. So we're doing what we can with what we have.
Yeah, and I asked the question because, again, you can defeat technology with other methods. So are doors alarmed at the school?
The doors are alarmed at all of our schools. I believe that there's a part of Central that is not secured. So, but George, can you come and explain this? George will be able to better, and that's why we have a team here. So George, if you can address that.
Mr. Gomez, like a question like that would probably be best, since it's being streamed, to maybe answer it after the meeting.
Okay, I'm fine.
Do you understand?
Yep, I'm fine with that. And then, because I was going to have a follow-up question to that. Dr. Mitchell, my last question is regarding training.
Yes, sir. Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yes, under the subject line here of training and preparedness, you have the training methods, you have vector, safe school, CPI, CPR, et cetera. The one training that may be needed, and I would consider this maybe not school safety, but student and staff safety, sexual harassment training.
Yeah, so we do, all our employees have to take sexual harassment training. We have, right now, at sexual harassment training, I believe we're at 80% compliance. Again, they have until March to complete that. We do, we have access to over 2,000 virtual trainings that we do, and those are assigned, again, in November, and they have a few months to address that, to take that, and we do it every year.
Do you know what the sexual harassment training completion rate is at Central High School?
It's not necessarily, we can pull that data by school, and, but I'll have to get with Andy. I believe he measures that. But as a district, I know we're around 80% right now.
Okay, if you get that information to the board relative to the sexual harassment training at Central High School, I'd appreciate it. That's all I have.
Dr. Mitchell, with regards to the radios, the walkie-talkie radios, does the SRO, are they able to communicate on a private channel to any police and fire in case of an emergency situation?
The SROs, they not only get our district radio, but they also have their radios. So yes, they have their they have 2 radios plus 2 cell phones. What those cell phones and their radio does is, that's part of what the East Chicago Police Department does, but when they are on our property, they do activate their radio for us, our radios.
Okay, thank you. Any other
Just want
questions?
to
from-
ask, question about, a while back, the board had agreed to sell this building, so is there any word on that?
I wasn't a
Because-
part of those conversations or those
Yeah, well, we-
negotiations, so I don't
Yeah, it
know.
was agreed to sell it, we agreed to sell it, all of us did. So,
If there was a contract, I've looked at the contracts that we have in place, and I didn't see a contract for sale of this particular building.
I don't know if anybody put a bid on it or not, but we all agreed to sell it. We all did, you don't
Yeah,
remember?
I
Yeah.
believe, actually it
Because
was,
I got the notes.
once we were talking about HVAC systems and the condition of this building.
Right.
I was going to ask that question, but I'm not sure if that's an attorney question, because,
And this is what I'll just say, and this is just my opinion. You probably want to really go into really deep counsel about putting one of your buildings on the market, seeing that right now, we know that our charter school partners, brothers and sisters, is growing, and we know what's happening. You remember that, you do have some things that you can sell your building, but if the building ever becomes available, you have to report it to the state. And the way the legislation is written, that first right of refusal goes to a charter school or some other educational institution. So be careful with that. You can kill your own population with that. You can look at what happened in Gary. Once you start that roller coaster, it's happening. And right now, it's happening to our sister community right next door to us who have 5 schools that they're being coerced right now to move on.
I think we're all aware of if we sell the building, what can happen. We're well of all that.
I'm just
only
saying
asked
that
the
we can
question.
lose our population
I
of
just only
students.
asked the question because you were speaking about the drips and putting the roof on and what have you not. That's why I was asking that question, but some conversation did come up about it as a board, what we had agreed to do.
and we're not talking about any of the schools. We're talking about this administration.
This
Right.
administration building is a school. So again, we want to be very careful with that because
Yeah, you bet.
we can lose, this building can hold 1,200 kids. You only got 3,100 kids in the building, and if our partners get the building, people like to go to what's new and shiny. And that could be a drain we can lose students. If we lose students, we lose revenue. We lose so much, we're not a district anymore. So just be very careful about that. You may want to also look at some alternative things. How do you monetize the buildings that you have with various programming and various functions? I say this to anybody and everywhere I go. East Chicago has some great buildings, great bones, great potential. We haven't taken advantage of all of the treasures that we have.
And we haven't kept them up throughout the years, and now we're just finding all of the deficiencies because of somebody that care. Transportation, I just want to ask you one little thing. You don't have to get up. These electric buses,
It's on the stream. You gotta be talking into a microphone in order for them to pick it up.
oh, she has to get up.
Yes, the camera.
Because otherwise, people watching virtually won't hear what she says.
I was just trying to make it easy on her. Okay, you said we're gonna get 3 electric buses.
No, we're going to get 3 propane buses.
Okay.
And our first, just 1 electric bus with a charging station.
Okay, I was gonna ask you about the charging station.
Yeah, they'll be installing it into the transportation department.
So will the charges, I'm just asking because I don't trust the electric cars or buses. Is that the charging station would just be at the transportation center or will they
Yes,
be?
they're going to put 1 charging station.
And it's gonna be able to carry us all over the little city?
Well, the mileage, the head mechanic was saying should be good, and they're paying for propane like $1 something, and he
Okay.
said this would be half the cost with the electric.
Okay. I just don't want our babies to go on a trip and the battery die.
No.
And then with these new buses, will they have, is it more to have air conditioning in them?
Yeah, they usually have air conditioning in the front, basically. It depends on how the mechanic ordered them. Some do have it in front and in back.
Because we did have a problem with the students saying we were hot, and parents are calling, and I'm like,
Yeah, because some of them buses do get extremely hot, they do.
yeah. Okay, well, as long
But
as
the
we
new
have-
ones, they're basically putting the air in them.
Well, as long as we have a charging station, we might have to put one on Columbus Drive, just in case. Just in case. But thank you.
I did, I'm sorry, I did have questions for you. I forgot to read them to you. But what is the mileage on that, a full charge on that bus?
He was saying that the head mechanic was saying it does go quite a lot of miles before it needs the charge, the one charge. I didn't bring it, but I do have that. He did give me all that information.
How do you plan on utilizing that bus?
Pardon me?
How do you plan on utilizing that bus?
Well, we usually replace whichever ones are 12 years and older. So whoever bus goes, we replace it with that one. That's like our propanes too. Any of the 12 years and older get replaced with the new ones. So whoever bus gets replaced and they pick that, that's the one they get.
Did that come through a grant, the electric bus?
Yes, the Clean Cities, I believe it is.
Okay, good. Same with the propanes?
Yeah, they all come together.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. So it sounds like we probably won't be taking that electric bus for a trip to Indianapolis or anything like that, right? And back. Okay. But, yes, I'm familiar. I did see them at the NSBA conference, and I was asking those type of questions. How long does it last? But I think one of the key components is making sure that it's garage capped. I think that was one of the components. Yeah, okay. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, directors. Thank you, superintendent. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Motion
to adjourn.
motion made by trustee Smith. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Gomez. All in favor?
Aye.
By saying aye? Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you.